One fine morning in the month of May, when Stuart was 3 years old, he arose early in the morning and welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing good. I am doing it too. So let's start with chapter 4, Stuart Little exercise. Storytelling, it's an art. Storytelling, of course, has a lot of ingredients to it. What are they?
What lies behind a successful storytelling? It's a person's hard work, some tiring moments, choosing the correct story, yes, getting tired, taking breaks in between just to gear up one's energy and restart.
Storytelling, of course, has a plot, has a setting, has background, has characters, just like Stuart Little has and any other story. Here in Stuart Little, who are the characters? We have a mouse, Stuart Little named, yes. We have George, a little boy, and we have George's mother and father, who also have adopted Stuart as the child. Next, the twist in the story comes with every chapter. And behind every background lies another part of understanding the story. Thus, tired eyes, numb fingers, sit to work to understand the who, what, how, and when of the story. Who are the important characters? What do they say? How do they say it? When do they say it? And fingers are back to work, for scripting is a must before the storytelling is done. Another important ingredient of any story is dialogue. Yes, the dialogues that Stuart tells, the dialogue that Stuart says with others, the conversation between the characters always mark a real important part in any kind of story. So here in chapter 4, let us discuss how the chapter starts and how the dialogue happens. One fine morning in the month of May, when Stuart was 3 years old, he arose early as was his custom, washed and dressed himself, took his hat and cane and went downstairs into the living room to see what was doing. Nobody was around but Snowbell, the white cat, belonging to Mrs. Little. Snowbell was another early riser, and this morning he was lying on the rug in the middle of the room, thinking about the days when he was just a kitten. "Good morning," said Stuart. "Hello," replied Snowbell sharply. "You're up early, aren't you?" Stuart looked at his watch. "Yes," he said, "it's only 5 minutes past 6, but I felt good and I thought I'd come down and get a little exercise." "I should think you'd get all the exercise you want up there in the bathroom, banging around, waking all the rest of us up, trying to get that water started so you can brush your teeth. Your teeth aren't really big enough to brush anyway. Want to see a good set? Look at mine." Snowbell opened his mouth and showed 2 rows of gleaming white teeth, sharp as needles. Here lies the climax. Yes, that Snowbell the cat shows the mouse Stuart Little his sharp teeth. Of course, we find or we think, will there not be a controversy? Will there not be a fight, a combat between the mouse and the cat? But let's see whether it happens or not. "Very nice," said Stuart, "but mine are all right too, even though they're small. As for exercise, I take all I can get. I bet my stomach muscles are firmer than yours." "I bet they are not," said the cat. "I bet they are," said Stuart. "They are like iron bands." "I bet they are not," said the cat. Stuart glanced around the room to see what he could do to prove to Snowbell what good stomach muscles he had. He spied the drawn window shade on the east window, with its shade caught in a ring like a trapeze, and it gave him an idea. Climbing to the windowsill, he took off his hat and laid down his cane. "You can't do this," he said to the cat, and he ran and jumped onto the ring the way acrobats do in a circus, meaning to pull himself up. Thus, in order to show that Stuart was special, he was a genius and he had acrobatic skills, he jumped onto the windowsill and got on to the ring, and just like a trapeze star, he went on swinging from one side to another in order to prove himself that Stuart was quite stout. Stuart was able and capable as equal as Snowbell because Snowbell had white teeth, but Stuart had some other quality. Yes, here lies the climax. But then what happened? Yes, as the climax goes up to the pinnacle, to the highest point, what happens next? Let's read. A surprising thing happened. Stuart had taken such a hard jump that it started the shade. With a loud snap, the shade flew up clear to the top of the window, dragging Stuart along with it and rolling him up inside so that he couldn't budge. "Holy mackerel," said Snowbell, who was almost as surprised as Stuart Little. "I guess that will teach him to show off his muscles." "Help, let me out," cried Stuart, who was frightened and bruised inside the rolled up shade and who could hardly breathe. But his voice was so weak that nobody heard. Snowbell just chuckled. He was not fond of Stuart and it didn't bother him at all that Stuart was all wrapped up in a window shade, crying and hurt and unable to get out. Instead of running upstairs and telling Mr. and Mrs. Little about the accident, Snowbell did a very curious thing. He glanced around to see if anybody was looking. Then he leapt softly to the windowsill, picked up Stuart's hat and cane in his mouth, carried them to the pantry and laid them down at the entrance to the mouse hole. When Mrs. Little came down later and found them there, she gave a shrill scream which brought everybody on the run. "It's happened," she cried. "What has?" asked her husband. "Stuart's down the mouse hole." Yes, he entered the mouse hole, and Snowbell, like a selfish cat, did not bother to help Stuart. Rather, he took the cane and the hat and kept there as a sign for people to understand that he's in the mouse hole. What happens next is, my God, how did the Littles save Stuart? Next coming up, and stay tuned for that. So remember, there is an effort after every little thing. As E.B. White has written the book Stuart Little with a lot of passion, with a lot of love. So are the readers reading that out. So are the writers writing and analyzing it more. And so are the listeners listening to it with love. Keep listening, keep understanding the importance of storytelling, because storytelling is not merely reading words. Storytelling is all about expressions, is about the different words stress, is about the language, about the pronunciation, about the sentence, about new words. I hope you like the reading, I hope you like the story, and stay tuned for more. Do subscribe, and for now, signing out. Bye-bye.